Revenge films.
I live together with my husband and our 3-year-old son, Sean. Up until now, we lived quite a peaceful and happy life altogether. One day, even though it was a weekday, my husband had the day off to make up for some overtime hours he had worked previously. Just before I was leaving for work in the morning, I realized that our son was starting to get a fever. I know it's your day off today, but please make sure to look after Sean the best you can.
Yeah, I got it.
I'll buy Sean his favorite pudding and jelly on my way home tonight. I'll be off then. With that, I left my sick son at home with my husband, but I couldn't help but to worry about my son's health, even though I was still at least a little at peace knowing that my husband was home to look after him. The topic of why I looked so worried on this day came up at work, so I told my manager honestly about what had happened with my son, Sean, and to that she said, "If that's the case, then you can take half the day off today." She was so kind. "Oh, I'm really happy that you're so understanding of my situation, but what about this project that we're working on? You worked overtime on it last week, so it's okay if you take half the day off today. If your son still has a high fever tomorrow, we can even look into you working from home tomorrow." Thank you so much. I know your husband must be looking after your son well, but I understand that you must still be worried about him. With that, I got the day off from the afternoon and I headed back home earlier than expected that day. But once I got back, there was no one at home. I called my husband thinking that maybe he'd taken Sean to the hospital, but his phone wasn't getting any reception, so I couldn't reach him. I couldn't get a hold of him on the phone, so I decided to text him. "How's Sean? How's his fever?" After a while, he replied saying he still has a fever, so he's still sleeping at home. What's he going on about? I'm home, but there's no one here. The thing is, though, that my husband's parents' house was quite close to ours, and we would go there often, so I thought that maybe he meant that him and Sean were there. So with that, I called his parents. His mother answered the phone and said, "I heard you two are having a day off today and you're on a date together. Are you both having fun?" For a second, I freaked out hearing her say that, but then I quickly replied, "That's right, we're having a great time." I lied to her. "Sean's fever has gone down, so you both don't have to worry about him. Enjoy your date together." To that, I just thanked her for looking after Sean and hung up. I was so perplexed as to what was going on. What's going on here? My husband's not home and he also won't answer his phone. Why did he leave Sean with his parents as well? I didn't know what to do, so I waited for my husband and son to come home later that evening. After they got back, my husband was obviously taken aback by the fact that I had gotten home earlier than he'd expected.
You're back early.
"Where did you go with Sean today? You know he should have been staying at home because he has a fever."
Well, you see, a friend of mine reached out to me saying that he needed to talk to me about something serious. So I had my parents look after Sean today.
I could tell that the whole story was just made up, but I knew that I couldn't let him know that I knew otherwise, so I simply said, "Okay," and pretended to be content with the answer he'd given me. Shortly after, we put Sean to bed, and then my husband said that he was off to have a shower. When he was having a shower, I decided to go through his trouser pockets. That's where I found a receipt, and it seemed as though the person he had been with had ordered sweet and fancy drinks and cakes. That seemed like something a woman might have ordered. Even if I had an inkling that he had cheated on me, I still needed hard proof to prove it. But I didn't have enough money to hire a private detective or anything. So I decided to get in contact with a mutual friend of my husband and I's in order to get her opinion on what to do. She's actually the person that first introduced my husband to me. I told her about everything that happened on this day, and to that she said, "I do feel responsible for your relationship, considering that I introduced the two of you to each other. So let's talk more about this together tomorrow night." So with that, we decided to meet up for dinner the following night. We met up at a restaurant, and I told her in detail what had happened, and I asked for her advice on what to do next. To that she said, "Let's get my husband on this." Wait, was your husband a detective or something? "No, but actually, I told him a little about what you told me yesterday, and then he told me that he'd be an assistant to a detective before. So he thought that maybe he could help out in terms of getting information on your husband." No way! That'd be so helpful. I was thinking of hiring a private detective, but I knew it cost too much money, and I was afraid that if I did so, my husband would find out by looking at our credit card bills and seeing that I'd pay for such a service. So with that, I got my good friend and her husband to help me find out the truth of what had been going on with my husband. After a while, my friend called me saying, "We got undeniable proof." With what my friend had told me, I didn't know if I was supposed to be happy or sad about this news. The evidence of my husband having cheated on me came in the form of photos that were taken of him having lunch and going into hotels with another woman. There were even photos of my husband letting that other woman into our house. I was so heartbroken. Because my husband had a lot of business trips and he would work on weekends sometimes, he was able to take days off during weekdays quite a bit. And it seemed as though he'd taken advantage of having weekdays off and would see that other woman on those days. After my friend and her husband had gotten a hold of the evidence I needed, we decided to come up with a plan to get back at my husband together. I even got in contact with my sister and told her everything that had happened, and I asked her to take Sean for a bit in order for me to execute the plan I had come up with. And to that, my sister said, "I understand. I'll look after Sean for as long as you need. Make sure to make your husband pay for what he's done to you." With that, I saw the opportunity to get back at my husband when he had just come back from one of his business trips. My sister said that she wanted to spend some time with Sean, so I let her look after him for the next few days. To that, my husband replied,
Oh, is that so? Sounds great.
He had absolutely no idea as to what was about to happen. The next day was a weekday, so I pretended to go to work like I normally do while my husband had the day off, but actually I'd taken the day off work. And together with my friend and her husband, the three of us staked out outside my house, and soon enough, we saw the other woman come by my place. My husband led her into our place looking all excited to see her. In all honesty, right at that moment, I was so angry at him that I could have confronted him right then and there, but my friend stopped me from doing so. We waited an hour until we decided to go in. Then we made our way inside my house. I opened the front door very quietly, and we listened carefully to figure out what they were both doing at my place. And that's when we heard their voices coming from inside the bedroom. My mind went completely blank, and I honestly can't remember too much about what was happening at this point in time. But when I came around, the three of us had burst through the bedroom door and were now in front of my husband and the woman he had been seeing. The two of them were too stunned to speak. My friend's husband got to quickly record what was going on here on video, while me and my friend were shouting at my husband and the other woman. My husband must have somehow misconstrued what we were shouting at him, and for some reason, he came to think that I had only just found out about him having cheated on me right in this moment. So he said,
This only happened this once! I only just met this woman today, and we got on so well that this happened!
To this, the other woman tried to have my husband's back and said,
That's right. We just met for the first time today. You won't see each other ever again, so please forgive me for what I've done here.
She apologized. I couldn't believe she was so blatantly lying to my face. So to that, I said to her, Then how do you explain this? And then proceeded to show the two of them all the photos that my friend's husband was able to obtain of them on dates together previously. And with that, both of their faces went pale.
How do you have such photos of us? Did you have someone tailing us?
I got these two to help me, I explained. And to that, my husband just dropped his face in shame. I feel so angry and I can't forgive you for having cheated on me. But what I can't accept the most about the situation is how you treated Sean during all of this. You left him with your parents while he was sick, just so you could see this woman, right? To that, my husband looked mortified and could only say,
I'm so sorry for having done that, so please forgive me!
He was groveling to me, but I pushed him away. I have no plans of forgiving either of you, and I've already called them to get here.
You called who?
Your parents and the husband of that woman. To that, the woman started to seriously panic.
Why would you call my husband? Please tell him that it's all just one big misunderstanding. Please forgive me for what I've done here.
She pleaded, but honestly, I was having none of that. Her husband soon got to my place. He burst in through the door and said,
We're getting a divorce!
Then my husband's parents got to my place too, shortly after. When they found out that their son had actually been going on dates with another woman and not me, his father said to him,
How dare you do such a stupid thing as to leave your son that was sick and go have fun with some other woman?
And then my husband started to get bashed up by his father. After that, my husband's parents apologized to me on their son's behalf, and they took him back to their family home. The next day, my husband tried to text me, email me, and call me in order to get in touch with me, but I ignored all of his attempts to contact me. I had already told him the day before that we'd be getting a divorce and I'd never change my mind about that. His parents came back to my place the following day and apologized to me again, and they promised me that they'd do their best to help financially support their grandson until he became an adult. As for the other woman, apparently her husband had been successful in the medical industry and was quite well off, so she'd been playing around quite a lot with his money. Apparently, she'd been seeing other men apart from my husband as well, so her husband took her to court and had her pay him a lot of money in damages for what she'd done to him. After finding out that he wasn't the only man the other woman had been seeing, My husband was in shock. But to that, his father simply knocked some sense into him and told him that he wasn't in a position to be feeling sad about that. Upon getting divorced, I got my ex-husband to pay for me for the damages he caused me, child support to Sean, and I also received much of the assets that we previously owned together. I was over the moon knowing that Sean and I would be financially stable, but I also knew that it wouldn't be easy at all being a single parent. But I decided to do my best and give Sean all the love I could give him, in order for him to have the best childhood he could possibly have, and for us to have a great future together. Luckily, my good friend and my sister were living quite close to my place, so they told me, "While you're busy working, we'll do our best to support you, so go out there and do your best." I had a great support system. Apparently, after everything went down, my ex-husband is still living at his family home with his parents. But living together with his strict father and his mother, who became depressed due to not being able to freely see her grandson anymore, apparently has made him stressed and depressed too. That's what he gets for what he's done.
How was today's video? If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Stay tuned for more.